Good evening, everybody. I would like to call the Monday, October 9th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting to order. It's now 6 o'clock, actually 6:01 to be exact. And we'll start off with a flag salute. And if, let's see, I think I'm going to have Jay lead us in the flag salute this evening. Jay, if you would be so kind, sir.
Please stand up, put your hand on your heart.
Where am I at? Upside down. Here we go.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And with that, we will do roll call. So, Madam City Clerk, if you would do roll call, please.
Commissioner Deborah?
Here.
Commissioner Magley?
Here.
Commissioner Santos? He had emailed that he would not make this meeting. Commissioner Steinbach?
Here.
Commissioner Stevens?
Here.
Vice Chair Graff?
Here.
And Chair Camerata?
Here. Okay, we're going to start off with oral communications. Item number 2, persons wishing to address the Planning Commission on subjects other than those that are scheduled or requested to do so at this time. Please provide your name and address to the record. In order to conduct a timely meeting, a 3-minute time limit has been established. Are there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on any issues that are not on the agenda this evening, or anybody online? Who's online? Is anybody online?
Anybody else? I can't tell.
Is that is that Laura? Oh, yeah.
Yep, that's Laura.
Laura, okay.
She's here. I don't see anybody else.
Okay.
And no one here wishes to speak on that. So,
Anybody else in the audience? If not, we'll move on. Item 3, consent agenda. We're going to do a motion to approve August 14th, 2023 minutes. Do I have one?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, so moved by Brenda, second.
I'll second.
By Mike. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, motion second. Meeting minutes are approved. Item number 4, public hearing. Item number 4A is discussion and consideration of an amendment to the site plan review number 1049. Request to amend the planning condition of number 14 of Planning Commission Resolution number PC 2023-14, quote, Unit 107 shall open to the second story, unquote, and finding that the action to be exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, at 25820 Lucille Avenue within the commercial retail zone. And I believe the applicant is Jeff Kaufman on behalf of the owner, Mr. David Nasretti, and MaxNet Commercial. Presentation will be by Assistant Planner Erica Barbero. And if we can have the presentation.
And Mr. Chairman, before we begin, I have to recuse myself because of my proximity to the location.
Okay, and we will note that Jay will recuse himself. We will see you back here in a few.
And while he's walking out, just a couple announcements first. I want to introduce Marco Ornelas.
Oh, I was going to do that at the beginning, but I thought we would get into this first. But you're right, before that. So I want to introduce Marco as our new attorney at the meetings, replacing David King. I had a chance to speak to him earlier today, so welcome. You'll probably get to know everybody more and more on a first-name basis as we go. So you're in good hands with the ladies in the front, so I will let the presentation begin.
Yeah,
So-
in addition, I want to recognize it is Indigenous Peoples Day, a recognized holiday, as well as National Community Planning Month. So every single one of you
And that is correct. I did read that.
have a
couple
role in
days
that.
ago.
Every single person in the room. So celebration.
Woohoo. Okay.
So a brief, in there, yeah. So a brief introduction before Erica gives the presentation. You all recall we had this item or this location before you this summer in June, and a decision was made on several amendments to the site plan. This item tonight isn't involving any of those, just one of the conditions of approval that was adopted relating to the units 107, 207, of course, on top of each other. There's a tenant in 107, and there's interest in not impeding on the operations of that tenant while also coming into compliance with 207, as you all had approved. So I know last time there was a lot of requests. It was confusing. This time it's one request. And so we're here to answer any questions, and I'll pass it to Erica.
Thank you, Brianna. So again, tonight we have amendments to site plan review 1041, located at 25820 Lucille Avenue, also known as Peninsula Plaza. To give background on this property, it was initially proposed in 2005, approved in 2006. The project is a two-story, 17,390 square foot multi-tenant building with retail office spaces. It was comprised of 16 surface parking spaces and 42 subterranean parking and a loading zone in the front. There was amendment in 2014 to remove the tiger teeth along Lucille. And in 2021, October of last year actually, there was a site plan review to allow a combination of uses identified in Section Code 11-1.48.03B, but the application was rescinded due to inaccuracies provided on the provided plan set. And this past June, again, that was approved under Planning Commission Resolution 2023-14. There was a series of requests made, including approving the unpermitted construction that had taken place on the site, allowing for a combination of uses up to 50% of uses that were identified in the code, up to 50%, a variance to remove the loading zone in order to add more parking spaces, and a request for shared parking. Again, all approved this past June. This evening, the request is to amend one of those conditions. The condition being Unit 107 shall open to the second story. As Brianna mentioned, 107, 207 are stacked. And in order to avoid disrupting operations of the tenant in 107, the applicant is requesting that portions of the floor in 207 are removed. Attachment 8 has a scope of work in more detail that was available in your packets. With the agreement that all access to the area be removed, in addition to supplying a letter provided by an engineer certifying that the space is no longer occupiable or usable, basically that the former floor can't hold a floor load. The next slide demonstrates where exactly the property in question is located. General plan, so the area is within the commercial uses, and the FAR of the building is less than 0.1. The property is located in the commercial retail zone of the city, and the adjacent zones are residential. This image shows basically a view of the building from across the street, the southeast corner. Back in 2005, when the project was proposed, we see that it says open to below. So at one point in time, it was a high ceiling in Unit 107. In our current proposal, as you can see that the area now known as 207 was subdivided into 3 suites. And there was another unit constructed, which was a part of the initial application in June, but the agreement was to have it removed based on the conditions. And this is the exterior of the units in question. Just keep note, Suite 208 is identified as 209 on the plan sets that were provided in your packets. So the findings for the application. So the amendment does comply with Title 11. There is no new building coverage proposed. Again, it's only an amendment to what was already approved, and it'll just create a suspended ceiling for Unit 107 instead of opening to the second story. The modification will be done in compliance with state and county building codes. And the exterior will remain unchanged apart from future signage of new tenants coming in and the removal of the unpermitted units visible from the public right-of-way. The new planning conditions of approval are essentially the same as previously. The application or the property owner should comply with all other approvals of 1049, so including June and then the application prior to this one. Unit 209 shall be demolished in its entirety as shown on the plans. Unit 207 shall be remained blocked off from second floor access and be unoccupiable. The applicant shall provide a certified letter from an engineer to the city and county analyzing and proving that 207 is unoccupiable and inaccessible, and that Planning Commission shall review and approve any combination of a unit or units within the other units or property. With that, I am available to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Erica. We will ask if there's any questions of Erica. Monica?
No, at this time.
Okay. Brenda?
No, at this time.
Okay, Mike?
Yes, I have a question. On the plans, that's there. The Suite 208 is going to be storage only, but it currently has all kinds of windows and everything in it. There was nothing said that they were going to replace those windows with solid walls or anything like that. So is that the intent? It shows here walls, or it appears to be walls here.
Can you go back to the pictures? That'll probably, go back to those two photographs right there.
No.
You don't want that one?
209, it's the one in the back.
Oh,
There's
so you don't have- I thought it was-
the storage unit,
Yeah,
the storage
okay.
unit.
I thought that was the one, okay.
Well, previously, in the June hearing, it was agreed upon that that area would be storage only. I don't,
Yeah, and that was part of the conditions of approval, so that remains intact. The applicant's not requesting to amend that one.
I'm sorry?
The applicant's not requesting to amend anything regarding that being a storage-only unit. So it is, by the way the resolution is written for tonight as proposed, that it can only be storage.
I understand that, but I mean, are the windows coming out, and is it going to be walled in like it shows here? That was my question.
I want to make sure we're talking about the same unit.
208, which is the one at the back of the building.
With the bathroom next to it.
Right. The wall that's along the no, not the corridor. I don't know about that one, but the one that comes up from the stairs, where the stairs come up. That there was a portion of that there that was all glass.
Yeah, that area can be storage. There was nothing in the adopted conditions of approval regarding what material any of the walls were. But it is required to be storage regardless, but they're not proposing any changing.
Windows on that, where the doors are.
They weren't proposing changing that.
Right. There's no requirement in the storage that you can't have it.
No, I understand that. We can clarify it with, okay? Because the plans show it that way. That was,
Well, are you looking right here where the doors are?
at
That
the-
wall?
At the back of the stairs, where the stairs come up and go to the left, that's coming up from
I don't
down
recall
below.
any windows.
If the applicant's here, we can clarify
There's
that,
there's
okay.
windows on Suite 209, 208, as it's shown here. That's where they had
the photos are for 208 and 207. The storage photos are not in this presentation.
Okay, so why don't we,
That's the front wall there.
well, we can add, we
if
can
the
add.
applicant's here, we'll
It's
we'll
kind of
clarify with the
irrelevant
applicant.
because,
Okay,
I know what you're saying.
is that all you had? Mike?
That's all I had, yes.
Bob, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay. Well, with that being said, we can see if the applicant is here and would like to address the commission, and then we can clarify that issue. If you'd like to come up and just state your name and address for the record? I mean, just for the sake of argument.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jeff Kaufman. I was here at the previous meeting. Nice to see you again. I didn't think I would be back here this soon, but we ended up with a little bit of confusion as to some of the language. But so this is really for clearing that up. So, by the way, my address 2000 East Chapman Avenue, Suite 202. That's Fullerton, California, 92831.
Okay.
And I think Staff has made a pretty clear presentation of what we're proposing here tonight, so if there's any questions, I can answer the questions, but I don't really have anything to add.
I think the question that Mike just asked was the only question that I think we have.
Yeah, the area that was used by the sheriffs
Yes.
before, that was like a conference room or whatever, has glass.
Right.
Okay? And the plan shows it as a solid wall. Is it going to be converted back to a solid wall, or is it just going to be left glass?
No, it's not. It's going to be left the way that it is right now, and if we didn't depict it correctly on the plan, I apologize for that, but it wasn't no intent to mislead you, but yeah, we intend to leave it as it is.
Leave it as it is,
Yeah.
okay.
Is it tinted?
Is it tinted?
The windows tinted?
I don't think so. I think they're clear right now. They probably
they're
will have to
clear.
cover them up
I didn't know if you wanted to have somebody look into an open space and say, oh, what's in there? You know, you have a bunch of
I
looky-loos.
don't know what will be stored in there, but it probably won't be something you would prefer to have your customers look in there and see, so they probably will get covered up.
You'll
and
spend
tinted.
more money on cleaning the windows with all the
Thank you.
footprints and eye prints.
sure.
Okay. All right, I think that's it. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back to the commission. If there's any other people that want to speak on it. I thought that was, okay. Okay, so with that being said, if there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion unless anybody else has any last questions. Oh, that's why I asked if there was anybody else. Did, Mr. Kivett, you wanted to speak on this matter? Okay.
I believe I spoke when the item was previously at the Planning Commission with other approvals most recently. And I do like the idea that there would be a ceiling in place above number 107, I believe it is. That would make it more economical to heat and cool that space versus just being a large void, open space above it. You just have so much more cubic footage that it would, I have high ceilings in my house. I mean, they're high, and it just takes more to heat it and so forth. I understand that in full. But I like that idea, but I don't know. I kind of don't like that there's going to be a door there. I'd rather have it walled off. If that's what the plans, as Mike was questioning, there's the windows there. And if that space is not usable, I don't think there should be a door and windows, because at some future point, owners change, things change, and maybe I have a misunderstanding, but I don't think there should be ready access into that space if it's not a usable space. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kivett.
If you'd like me to clarify, on the plans that were officially submitted, those doors are noted as being removed. You can kind of see that. It's hard to tell right here, but when you're looking at the plans themselves, they're dashed lines representing the doors. It means they're part of the demo.
Okay, I was going to
No
say,
more
can we
door.
clarify that?
Yeah. And in the rear and on the kind of interior hallway and on the west side.
The doors that are currently there for entrance into 207 will be a solid wall.
They will be removed.
They will be
I think it's
removed.
actually going to be drywall and.
Yeah, it's drywall and, steel studs and drywall, I think it said, yeah. Okay.
So to
And
clarify.
yeah, that's specifically noted on the plans.
In the plan. So just to clarify, there's no doors. Okay. Hopefully that resonates with everybody. All right. That being said, is there any other questions from any commissioners for the staff and or the applicant? Monica, anything? No. Brenda? No. Mike?
Nope.
Bob?
No.
Okay. I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for a motion.
I'll move that we approve the request for the site plan review number 1049 to amend planning condition 14 of the Planning Commission resolution, so stated by the staff report.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Second. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. See if you would retrieve Jay from the chambers, or back to the chambers, I should say. Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Next is going to be public hearing 4B is in Bravo. Discussion and consideration of a zoning text amendment number 2023-08, amendment to the Lomita Municipal Code Title 11, Planning and Zoning, Chapter 1, which is zoning in parentheses, Article 30, residential zones in parentheses, regarding secondary front setbacks for accessory dwelling units according to State of California requirements, and finding that the action to be exempt from California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. The applicant is the city of Lomita, and we will have a presentation by Community and Economic Development Director Brianna Ridge. Brianna, if you would.
Good evening. This item staff recommends continuation of. It's a discrepancy that staff has identified in city code versus state code, where the state ADU code is actually not clear about it. And we have applications that have come through that have made us realize this. And so our city code, what the issue is that we would like time to research more and get official directive from HCD on, is when you have a corner lot, our city code, as well as many other cities, will have a front yard setback, your side yard setback, rear yard setback, but also a secondary front setback. And that's 10 feet compared to 5 feet for side. And so we have many corner lots in the city, and our city code specifically defines, regardless of the design, that the shortest frontage property line is the front. So if you have a house facing the longest side of the property line, and when it comes to its interaction with the street, that's considered the secondary front in our city code. The state doesn't make any distinction between what to call this. The city also has not received official correspondence in the ADU ordinance we adopted earlier this year and shared with them for input. So while we await that or anything else, we're going to operate as is, and I'm happy to dive into kind of the issues with that, why that's a big difference, if you'd like me to.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from Commissioners? Brenda? I'm going to start with you. No, Brenda.
No, that's fine.
Bob? I'm going to shake it up a little.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, well, let me go through the formality of it. Jay, any
Throwing
questions?
no-look questions our way. Nothing for me.
Mike?
Nope.
Monica? Okay. Anybody, do I have to go through a public hearing on this one as well? Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. And if there's any speakers on this? No. Just Laura, okay. Anybody in the audience want to speak on this item? If not, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. If seeing that there's no other questions, I'll ask for a motion to postpone the vote on this.
I move we continue the item until after research and communication with the State of the Housing and Community Development is complete.
Okay?
Period.
Okay. Who do you want to have the second for, Mike or Brenda? We're going to give it to Brenda. Okay.
You can have it.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Okay, that carries, so we'll continue that until the next meeting. If not the next meeting after that, we'll see where we are. Okay. Scheduled matters, item number 5. This is a hot button. We've been pushing this thing down the sidewalk for a while. Discussion and consideration of updating the Planning Commission bylaws has continued from July 10 and August 14, 2023 meetings. The presentation again is by Community and Economic Development Director Brianna Ridge. And if you would be so kind to give us another presentation on something we've already been talking about.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've actually given the presentation yet, because I think we've been, your directive was to await full attendance to discuss this item.
Correct.
But, you know, if you have a quorum, it's up to you. Long story short, the bylaws were updated a long time ago, even so much to the fact that the meeting time is incorrect on them as 7 p.m. So you have an opportunity and the ability to adopt an updated set of bylaws for your body. And
Okay.
staff can bring back an amended resolution at the next meeting.
Okay. So thank you for that presentation. I will ask any of the commissioners if they have any questions. We'll start off with Jay.
No.
Okay, Bob?
I'm confused. Are we not doing anything with it right now?
Well, we're just gonna, I'm gonna get to that in a second. Any questions?
Well, I can't have a question, but I don't know.
Okay, well, we've been kicking this thing down the road so long that I think we should vote on it tonight.
You don't, or we do?
Do. I think we should vote on it tonight,
Vote on what?
on whether or not to amend or update the bylaws.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you'd like to give specific direction on which parts to update, we can bring back the resolution with those red lines
Right,
for you
and
for
that was
adoption.
my plan, because we've been kicking this thing down the road for a while now.
So when you say vote on it, we don't really have anything to vote on.
Unless
I would
somebody's
say
got
that we would
specific
give staff
changes.
direction
Yeah,
to put
exa-
together
yeah,
blah, blah,
exactly.
blah, blah, blah. But at some point, there's got to be some discussion as to what we're going to amend. And I don't know if staff has an agenda for that, or if you're
Well,
waiting
as
to hear.
As I understand it, if we have anything we'd like them to update or amend, we can direct staff to do that, and then bring it back to us for a final vote.
That's what I'm waiting for.
Okay. Okay. Ladies, Brenda, Monica?
Well, so that means we can come up with suggestions on what we
Correct.
want changed.
Correct.
So I feel very sorry that you have to attend every city council meeting, so I think we should change that where not anybody from planning should need to attend because
Okay.
we're updated at each meeting.
Correct. That's exactly my conversation piece I had today with Marco.
Okay.
So, anything else? What item is it? It's item,
In the bylaws.
it's item, no, it's,
On page 2.
it's page 2, section,
Under rules of procedure.
right here, I just had it right here. No, that's the planning commission meeting. I had it highlighted in my other. Oh, it's item 7B. Item 7B, election and duties of officers. So 7B, duties and responsibilities of officers. The chair shall preside at all meetings. And then 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see that. No, I see that. Item 7.3, I don't see where it's. No,
Oh, it's
I
actually,
think the interpretation of it is not,
it's actually 7B3. It's on the top of page 6. Represent commission at meetings of city council.
Yeah, I think he's looking for the part that says that the chair is to go to every single city council meeting.
Yeah, that's.
Chair shall.
That's what it says, chair shall, it says there. And it says, in the absence of the chair, the vice chair shall perform the duties of the chair. In absence of both the chair and vice chair, immediate past chair shall preside at the meeting.
But that would be you again.
Yeah,
That's the duties.
yeah, so it comes back to me.
So what we're saying is we want to delete item 3.
Yeah, but that's not the same, that's still not the one I'm looking for.
But I think
That talks about.
see, now
Yeah,
we're
but
going to
I
get
think-
into a debate about the merits of these. I think we just need to give it to staff, have them come up with some appropriate language, because to be honest with you, you don't want to just take something out and banish it. You want it to say something that more reflects what our appetite is and what city council's appetite is for there to be representation, whether it's through the chair or one of us, Brianna, or anybody in staff, because this was all written before a digital age. So But I think staff is, I think they get where we're going on this. There's also an appetite for, Brenda attended the council meeting that I attended. Brianna was there, and there was, not to speak for the city council, but there was an appetite by a couple of council members on the number of meetings missed and our representation at those meetings. They're like, threw their hands up, and I don't want to say who, but they were like, why are we doing this? So they're interested in this whole thing too. So I think realistically, rather than just picking out one or two of these, I think we need to look at everything on here and see if it fits today and for the next 5 to 10 years. And this should probably be, or is it already on a rotation to update, like the general plan, where
It does not, there's no state mandate for such an update, but like I mentioned before, this item was agendized at the direction of Planning Commission, triggered by that number of the meeting attendance of the city council meetings.
Right.
And then we also see that the meeting time is incorrect on there.
Right.
And then the issue you had just brought up about the number of missed meetings, excused absences, whatever it might be, that is not in this document, it's in the city code. So we would bring that back to you as an ordinance.
Right.
If you direct us to.
Okay. And in talking to Marco today, he and I chatted about this a minute, and he basically saying that this is not something mandated by the state. This is all within our purview.
Right.
So I think
But anything we change on here has to be approved by council, am I correct?
no,
This was actually adopted by Planning Commission, but
it comes back to us.
if we bring back an ordinance, I'd bring back the items together, so they'd go before you and before council.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's any changes, you can just direct staff to look into changing them. One is the attendance, one is the time, and if there's anything else, and then we could let them do their thing and then bring it back.
So we've got two items.
So
One is
far.
representation at
So far,
council
so
meetings
far,
and the time of the actual current meeting.
Well, I don't think we have to come up with a comprehensive list tonight.
No, but those are the two that we've been batting around the last couple of discussions.
For me, and I did pull out, because I didn't see it addressed in the planning rules and procedures, I did pull up the planning commission, and my concern was the number of misses, and I get it, but the only thing that this is directing us to states that if you're on city business, you're automatically excused. And it doesn't really tell you anything else, what's a viable excuse to miss a meeting. And with, our meetings, I mean, we all plan accordingly for the second Monday of the month, but then boom, 3-4 days before the meeting's canceled. So if we were out of town, there should be some kind of lenience or a better direction on that. And then my other thing is, why is it, and is it only the planning commission that goes before the city council, basically in front of the world, telling everybody, whoops, I made a mistake? And does it need to be addressed at a city council meeting, where I feel there are more important things to discuss than somebody who missed one extra meeting for whatever reason, whether it was justified or not? And in my opinion, we're all here if we can be, and if we can't, that should be an excuse thing, unless you miss 6 months. But I don't know if that's here, because it's not in the laws. Is that two different things?
That item is in the ordinance, in the city code.
Okay, so that has to be addressed.
Yes, but I would recommend we come back to you all attempting to address both together.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they would go to council both together, because the ordinance is required to.
And then why, I think the other thing is why do we have to go to a city council meeting anyway? Because sometimes there's 3 of us, sometimes there's all of us. I mean, depending on what's on the agenda, we might want to attend it, without having to go and sit through sometimes a very lengthy meeting
Not to mention
that
it's
really, that we
recorded.
have no input on. I mean, we can't
And
say
it's
anything.
recorded.
We get a summary from you as well,
Yeah,
so.
that would be my,
So I think-
my suggestion.
I think that kind of hits the highlights, right? Attendance.
Yeah, we can absolutely return with that directive if we have agreement.
Okay, I don't know if we need to vote on it, but I think we're all in concurrence. You want to vote on it?
And the change of the time.
So the council meeting attendance, change the time, and then the missed meetings.
I have a
Then they'll bring
question.
it back for
Right,
review.
right.
Yes.
So I have a
Yeah,
question. If you
hold on a
miss
second.
3 meetings, then you're in lieu of possibly losing your position, correct?
According to this.
According to that,
Yes.
according to the city code.
And that's,
Okay,
is that
so
4 in a
in
row?
order, excuse me.
Okay.
Okay, so in order to be excused from that, isn't the city code, does it say you have to go before the whole city council?
That was my question.
Because years ago, I missed 3 meetings, and so what Tim King was along, and I just called him and told him, you know, my mother-in-law had cancer, that's why I missed. He goes, okay, don't worry about it, you're on. So that's totally different than what it's in the city code, correct?
It's similar. So the way our code is written that the clerk's office has been operating within, at least since I've been here, is that the code says if you miss 3, then you receive a letter from the mayor letting you know, hey, if you happen to miss another unexcused, but again, it doesn't define excused. If you miss another meeting, then it'll be up to city council whether to allow you to basically keep your post or not. And that's what's in code now. And so that was what we had to go through this summer. But we're receiving direction now to change that process.
Yeah,
And city
because
council's
according
one
to
piece of
this-
directive was to define excused.
This states that if you miss 3, the mayor is supposed to send you a warning.
Yes.
But if you miss the 4th, whether you've had a warning or not, that seat shall be deemed vacant, and they can replace you and put up. And I think that's where the issue comes in.
It says unless city council makes the findings to keep the member.
Which is why you have to go before the city council and sort of make your case.
So is there something in work to revise that now?
Now's the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we
Can we do that? Do we have to vote on it?
No, not until it comes back. You could-
Comes back?
Yeah,
Okay.
with the- yeah.
And
So-
the process for changing this would be a different process than changing the
Exactly,
bylaws.
exactly.
The bylaws can be changed by you all here.
Correct, right. But that meeting issue is. changed
We'd
by
bring
the
them
council,
as
yeah.
And I think,
twins.
and I think everybody's thinking the same thing. And correct me if I'm not speaking right, but I think that the basis of being unexcused,
Actually, there's no such thing.
other than no, only excused is if you're on city
City
business.
business.
City business.
Other than that, there's none.
Other than that, there isn't any. And I think we need to do is revisit that. And I'm of the opinion, my opinion, I don't know everybody else, is that there are extenuating circumstances for everything. You know, illness, family illness, I mean, and I don't know how to define that. Maybe council can help define those extenuating circumstances where you're not hit over the head for something that you're in the hospital having a heart attack about, okay? And so that's my opinion.
No, I agree with you. It's the day of it's the sign of the times. If you have a legitimate reason, like you said, you're in the hospital or you're, planned a trip 6 months ago and all of a sudden it happens to be on during a Monday meeting, as long as you give them notice. I mean, if you want to miss one, it's not the end of the world, but if you continually miss meetings, then that's an issue.
And heavens forbid you get sick in 1 year, and then you've already planned a vacation when you're well, and that's 4. I mean, stuff happens. So if you guys could write it technically correct, politically correct, and bring it back to us.
So
And I
this
can
is,
add that these absences are per calendar year. And so it's not, your entire term is just per calendar.
Per
And you
calendar.
don't roll anything over.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you happen to have a bad year and you get sick or whatever, and then all of a sudden
Well, yeah, but you could be sick, and your mom could be sick, and the kids could be sick, and you got a letter.
Yeah.
you know? It's like you got a letter in your folder. It's, you know, it's not unlike holding a job in a company where they have to give you written warning before action, you know?
Ultimately, when you hit that fourth, then you have to state your case. That's how it is.
Sure.
It's already that way. So it's up to the commit, or the council, whether they appoint any of us at any time. So it becomes, so it's already, there's something to cover that.
Right.
It's just the letter thing. And I think the bigger thing is that there's not much of an appetite with the powers that be that it's done in a public forum.
Exactly.
That was a bigger deal.
On the other
And
hand,
that's what bothered me.
on the other hand, if you don't miss any meetings, you should be getting the good attendance award. In
Well,
a public
and they
forum.
used to give.
In a public forum.
They
In a
used to
public
give
forum.
attendance,
Yes,
For the
they
world
used to do that.
see.
they used to give attendance awards.
Oh,
Yeah,
Want us to earn that, all
Yep,
that money we get
that's
paid
right.
to do.
that's right, that's
That's
right.
right.
Council got a raise.
So,
Council.
Well, they deserve it.
well, relief of taxes.
okay, so I think we're all of the same opinion that those are the several categories. Now, do I want to open up the public hearing on this? I don't think this is a public
It's
hearing.
just a scheduled item, so
Okay.
Can we, Mr. Chair, I just want to make sure that staff can take a look at everything on there, and if there's something you'd like to see, feel free to make recommendations on anything.
Which I guess what he's
Anything
saying
that
is
would make it more efficient for the operation,
bringing it up to the 20th century.
anything
right?
you want.
Yeah.
absolutely. We'll also look at other cities and how they do it, if theirs works. I feel good about the direction we've got, so I think we can come back to you with what you're looking for.
Gotcha, okay. All right, good. We'll go around one more time. Anybody else want to add anything? Jay, anything? Would you like to add anything else to the discussion, just to make sure that she's got clear direction?
No, I think this is great.
Great, okay. Okay. Anything else, Bob? No. Okay, Mike? No. Brendan? Monica? Okay. So we'll direct staff to come back with a rewrite, proposed set of bylaws at the next meeting maybe, or the meeting after, you don't know?
Not sure yet.
Okay, all right.
I won't be at the
That's
next
okay.
meeting.
Just keep us posted. Okay. No, it's not a public hearing, George. It's a scheduled item.
So number 5B, I can't speak on that either?
5B, oh, no, we haven't gotten there yet. We haven't gotten to 5B yet.
I know, that's not a public hearing either, so I'm not going to be allowed to speak on 5B.
No, that's a discussion as a presentation from staff as far as,
I speak on scheduled matters regularly. I think it's a change of policy.
I don't think it's a change of policy. I'll just confirm with council. Are members of the public allowed to speak on scheduled items?
I'm going to review the bylaws because that can change based off.
Okay. Because,
And in my experience, if we're not sure, to allow public
yeah, and I
comment.
have no problem allowing him to speak. I just want to make sure I'm not going to exclude him, but I don't, we're not making a decision on this anyway tonight, so he can speak as far as that goes after you make the presentation. Okay.
Section 5B, isn't it?
Yeah, 5B. Well, we hadn't gotten there yet, but anyway, what was the comment you were going to say?
I was going to review the bylaws.
Oh, okay. I have no objection, so George, we'll go ahead and let Brianna do the presentation, and then if you put your card in.
I wanted to speak on 5A. Let's try to speak it.
I have no problem if you want to speak on 5A as well. If you want to come up and speak, you can speak right now. This is on 5A, the one we just talked
I
about.
speak on scheduled matters on a regular basis.
Okay.
very often.
No argument from me. Go ahead.
Well, I understand, but now you're saying that it's excluded. I mean, that's a change of precedent.
No, I did
in
not
a
say it was
big way.
excluded. I just said I didn't think you could speak on a scheduled
And
matter,
mean,
but I
there's
will
been
get clarification
I've
from legal
spoken,
counsel, and
before
you can
as
go
to
ahead
some
and
other
speak.
irregularities at the planning commission, and I will have a conversation with the, with the city attorney regarding this.
Well, Mr. Kivett, let me just tell you, we have legal counsel here. He's going to check the bylaws, but I'm not
the
excluding you,
new
so you can go
individual
ahead and speak. You have the floor. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, well, I just want to say that I think in the matter of planning commissioners having to attend city council meetings, I think in many cases, there's not really a need. There's a lot of times where there's very little on the city council agenda, and I think if in the cases where there's something that's come up from the planning commission or that is a direct planning type issue, then I think it would be most appropriate to have a planning commissioner attend the city council meeting. But like I said, there are times when I don't think there's really a need. And the city council meetings are recorded, and if there's a need be, the commissioners could review it on the recording. And they're pretty good about that, although sometimes there are lapses in the city council meetings. And I've made note of that and told our city management that sometimes there are lapses. And I've talked to the city clerk on that also. Regarding absences, I think Commissioner Steinbach had mentioned that it's already within the rules, so to speak, and I thought that maybe it should be revisited, but after further consideration, I think it's fine the way it is. But it'll be up to the commission and the council and staff as to how things proceed. But I'm going to just repeat myself once again. I speak on scheduled matters on a regular basis, and if it's known that I cannot, then I'll speak during the earlier oral communications from the public and to state my case. But it should be one way or another. And this is a big change. It's never been stated that, and I've attended these meetings consistently for about 10 years, and I've never once that I can recall been told that I cannot speak on a scheduled matter. Thank you very much.
And I will reiterate my point. I did not say you couldn't speak. I said I will check with council. And you just spoke on it. So you're noted in the meeting minutes, and we'll wait again for council to get back to us here in a few minutes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I was reviewing the bylaws and we cannot speak to instances like this, so maybe that's something that can be revisited by staff as we amend the bylaws in the coming weeks.
Okay. My day is done. All right, so we'll go to scheduled matter 5B, discussion and consideration of land use alternatives for general plan update, presentation from Community and Economic Development Director Brianna Ridge.
Good evening once again. I'm going to be giving an introduction, and we have Mr. Perry Banner here today, who is the team lead on the consultant side of De Novo Planning Group. So you may recall this past springtime, City Council authorized the update of our general plan. Perry will go into details on that. But De Novo Planning Group was selected, and they conducted a lot of different venues of public engagement this summer, be it electronic, be it in person, be it in passing at Founders Day or National Night Out. We were out there and trying to get all the input that we could. And I gotta say, in my experience, we got a large percentage of input compared to other cities I've worked for. So that was really exciting to see people so excited about what we do on a daily basis. So where we're at now, and the reason we're here tonight is because the next step for the project overall is to come up with a future land use preferred method. And what that is a map. So anytime you all are reviewing a project, staff is analyzing it for conformance with the zoning ordinance and with the general plan. So you see that in all of your staff reports like you did for the Peninsula Plaza tonight. So when this general plan gets adopted, that's the effect it's going to have. Anytime something comes before you, it has to pass the general plan as well as the the zoning code. So what you're deciding on tonight, you're right, is not a decision to be made. It is you all's opportunity to provide your input to the consultant, because we've gotten public input. The GPAC has had 4 meetings already. We had a city staff workshop as the boots on the ground to see what's feasible. And actually, I think we had 2 GPAC conversations about it. And so now it's our planning commission and then city council next Tuesday. But again, it's not any decision being made. It's okay, I see these land use alternatives. I see these different maps. I like this from these 2 maps, or I like this one map. Let's move forward in this direction. I don't want to emphasize that these are conceptual. This, by selecting or giving input tonight, you're not saying this lot's going to be future land use that, this lot's going to be that. You're just saying this is the general idea overall that you want to move forward with, and then they'll be back with an actual preferred land use plan based on your input and city council's input. So without further ado, we have Mr. Perry Banner here.
I'll let you know to advance the slides. Does that work? Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here tonight, especially a major milestone in the project, really. Brianna gave an excellent background as to where we are. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper as far as that is concerned. But this is a significant step in this project, and this is going to be a 2 to 2.5 year project. So, as I mentioned, major milestone. Happy to be with you. As you probably know, if you've perused the staff report, it's pretty meaty. There's a lot of material in there. I'm going to try to go through the presentation as efficiently as possible, but I want to kind of tell you the story so that you're informed when you start to have a discussion about it. So I'll try to be concise, but there's a lot to go through. But as far as, can you just go back for, so as far as tonight is concerned, start off with a little background, talk about schedule, give you a little bit more information on the community outreach that we did. Then we'll dive into the land use alternatives report and the alternatives themselves, talk next steps, and then tee it up for comments and questions. So the city, of course, launched the comprehensive general plan update in May 2023. Thank you again for selecting De Novo Planning Group as the consultant and consultant team to do so. Along with that project, it's a big project actually, there's a corresponding zoning code update, and then we'll be doing an environmental review for the project. The size of the project is going to dictate that it's an environmental impact report, which takes a fair bit of time to prepare. And then this project will implement the recently adopted and state certified housing element, particularly Program 11, Objective Design Standards, and Program 14, the rezoning program. Next slide, please. So your general plan, and I know that the Planning Commission, the general plan is in the purview of the Planning Commission. So we know that this is the document, the strategic document that's going to define the path for the city for the next 20 years or so. And when we prepare these, we want to make sure that it reflects the goals and the values of the community. It's going to be built on any recent city planning efforts. There was a great deal of public outreach that goes into this. We want to make sure that we're crafting a plan that, like I say, reflects the community values. And we want to come up with a document that balances growth, sustainability, and quality of life. Next slide, please. In a general plan, there are certain elements that are mandated. Those include land use, circulation, mobility, housing, etc. Some discussion on environmental justice, whether that be a standalone element or whether environmental justice goals and policies are woven throughout the document. And then there's optional topics. We talk about economic development, and potential other element is implementation, sort of a plan to implement the general plan. Next slide. And as far as the policy document itself, it'll contain the goals. Those are the sort of the broad statements of community desire. The policies are kind of what leads decision makers like yourselves and the city council when you're making decisions on development proposals, for example. And then there are the programs or the implementation actions that actually go ahead and implement the goals and policies. As far as the schedule, where are we? We're in the process of preparing an existing conditions report, which is, I'm going to talk on in the next slide. We've gone through already a very robust public outreach program to identify community priorities. So we're at step 3 right now, where we've prepared the land use alternatives report, gearing up to then, after we get input from Planning Commission and City Council, to prepare the preferred land use plan. From there, we'll be able to start crafting the goals, policies, and programs of the general plan, kick off phase 1 of the zoning code update, start to prepare the environmental impact report, and that'll lead us to September, October of next year, where we'll have public hearings for the adoption of the document. Now, we'll see the Planning Commission and City Council between now and then, but that's, broadly speaking, that's where we'll be in September, October of next year. And public participation, I will say, will be woven throughout this whole process. The existing conditions report, this is essentially the document that analyzes the existing conditions on the ground, and it looks at land use, market trends, mobility conditions, environmental justice. This is a document that staff has been reviewing chapters of, and that the Planning Commission will soon have or not the Planning Commission, but the General Plan Advisory Committee will soon have a look at. Next slide. As far as community outreach is concerned, just to highlight again some of the things that Brianna talked about, we prepared a website, did a little video on what is a general plan, how does it impact Lomita, series of visioning workshops, 3 in total through June and July, a couple of pop-up events like Founders Day, did an online survey that sort of mimicked the activities of the visioning workshops, and I want to say that we got about 160 responses in the online survey, so pretty solid. We've had social media, the GPAC, of course, Planning Commission meetings now, City Council next week, and then when we get to the EIR, we'll do a scoping meeting for that document and much more. The General Plan Advisory Committee is a 12-member board that represents the community at large, and that body serves as our kind of soundboard a little bit. So before we came to the Planning Commission tonight, we talked about mobility issues, we talked about market trends, land use, and we got some feedback from the General Plan Advisory Committee that helped us craft the report that you have before you tonight. That's just to give you a sample of some of the things that the GPAC has been discussing. So let's just dive right into the report and the alternatives. The purpose of the report that you have is really to provide the decision makers, you, the City Council, with the tools to consider and evaluate potential land use and development pattern changes during the horizon of the general plan, so over the next 20 years or so. And when we prepared this document, and each of these alternatives, they're based on existing conditions, land use, like housing, population. We looked at circulation and mobility concerns, fiscal impact concerns, and also infrastructure concerns. Next slide when you're ready. So, as Brianna kind of indicated as well, there were many steps before we arrived at the Planning Commission. So this went through community input via the workshops and online, number of GPAC discussions, Technical Advisory Committee, which is a body that consists of staff, department heads, I believe, and then agencies that work on behalf of the city, like the Sheriff's Department and LA County Building and Safety, all providing input to make sure that what was being proposed is actually, possible and sustainable. So there are 4 alternatives that are presented to you. I'll dive into each one of those shortly. And really, they're intended to provide you with kind of a range of options, a minimalist approach and a maximalist approach, and something in between. In general, the land use changes considered in each alternative are focused along the city's main corridors and at key nodes. Next slide, although I'm going to just emphasize this one thing, is that what you have before you, please keep in mind that don't think of this as policy just yet. Until the document is actually adopted, it's just in draft form. So there's lots of discussion still to be had. One of the things that we did as we were going through this process, from input from the community and from input from the GPAC, is arrive at a set of guiding principles. How do we arrive at these land use alternatives? What's important to the community? What should we be looking at as we're crafting these? And we came up with these 9. One, we heard loud and clear that the city wanted us to preserve the existing residential neighborhoods. We heard a lot about the downtown and that we should be celebrating and enhancing downtown Lomita. We heard that we needed an expansion of housing choices to allow more and different people to live and work in Lomita. That we should be encouraging new desirable uses, independent businesses, that sort of thing, to boost the local economy. People wanted a community that's walkable so that they don't need to drive around Lomita all the time. They wanted to create pedestrian-scaled environments. And they wanted to target housing growth to support the existing commercial activity and any commercial activity that might come forward. They wanted to reinforce the corridors, PCH, Lomita Boulevard, Narbonne, with memorable places, give them a sense of place. And finally, we wanted to create a fiscally sustainable land use plan that balances residential and non-residential development. Next slide, please. So now we'll launch into the alternatives themselves. Again, the purpose of this is that we want to show you the current general plan and the alternatives, and that they're intended to present a different approach to planning in Lomita. Remember, we're going to provide you with a range of options here. It's not expected that you'll like everything about one alternative, and in fact, you might lean towards one alternative but like other elements of other alternatives. That's fair. And we'd like you to take a proactive role in this, right? If the city doesn't go about updating its general plan and considering these, new growth over the next 20 years, then you might be subject to external forces like the state, like developers coming in and making demands. So it's important for you, Planning Commission, City Council of the city, to be in the driver's seat of what goes on in the city. Next slide. So I want to start just laying out the existing conditions. This map is a reflection of existing land uses. It's not the general plan land use designation map. This map is based off of information from the assessor's office, tells us what's actually physically on the ground right now in terms of land use. So the city is, for the most part, kind of a traditional grid. Your main corridors run north, south, east, west, and lots of residential, low density residential in between. And again, that low and medium density housing kind of dominates the landscape for the most part in Lomita. And the other thing is that Lomita is really, it's almost entirely built out. There's little to no vacant land in the city, and that leaves little flexibility in how things can be developed in the city. Next slide. So with alternative number 1, we're calling this business as usual. And alternative number 1 would be if the city chooses to do nothing, to not change their current general plan at all, to just leave it as it is, go with the existing land use designations. This would be it. And so really it describes the existing land use setting. It'd be kind of a continuation of the same residential development pattern, which is one of low density. Currently, there's about 51% of dwelling units in the city are 1-unit detached dwellings, single-family homes. There would continue to be some development potential if you go on with the current general plan, but that development would be pretty sporadic. A little bit of residential, a little bit of non-residential can be anticipated. What will happen, though, is that the city will fall out of compliance with its recently adopted and state-certified housing element, because the housing element says that you need to accommodate X amount of housing units over the next 8 years, and you need to ensure that there's policies and zoning in place to accommodate that housing. The existing zoning and the existing general plan does not. So if you choose to do nothing, you're going to fall out of compliance with the housing element, and you're going to be in trouble from the Department of Housing and Community Development. So what you can expect is future general plan amendments to make amends. Before you go to the next slide, I want to say this as well. These general plan updates, these are big projects. Like I say, 2.5 years. Usually this process, even the process of arriving at the land use alternatives report might have been another month, maybe a month or 2 months down the road. But the driving force behind this project, what makes it really front-loaded, is the fact that the city has to have its rezoning done to implement Program 14 of the housing element by October 2024. Now, you may think that that's way out there, still a year off, but when you back into it, and when you consider that there's adoption hearings, there's the preparation of environmental impact report, the circulation of that document, the preparation of the general plan, it really caused this project to be accelerated at the front end. So it might seem like, man, you guys got this land use alternatives report in short order, not a whole lot of time to review. It's really schedule driven. What will happen with this project is that we need to have a preferred land use plan arrived at by November of this year. Because what we do then is with that preferred land use plan, now we have a project description. Now we can start to prepare the environmental impact report. That environmental impact report is going to take 10 months to prepare. So after November into December, things will really slow down with this project, which will give Brianna a breath of fresh air, right? We'll have a few months then to create policies and all of that, but to get to this stage right now, we really had to hit the accelerator. But we'll go on to the next slide. So alternative 2, we'll call baseline. And what alternative 2 does is it starts to expand the range of housing choices. Key to alternative 2 is that it fully implements housing element program number 14, the rezone program, okay? And what that, if you look at your housing element, I'm not sure if this planning commission was the one that considered the housing element and adopted the housing element. If you did, great, because you'll understand. The development in the housing element is focused on Lomita Boulevard and Narbonne. That's where new mixed-use zoning was proposed to accommodate the regional housing needs allocation. So what baseline does is that it proposes new land use designations, primarily along Lomita Boulevard and Narbonne, to accommodate the implementation of the housing element, plus a little bit more. Because what the housing element did is that it's identified sites, these opportunity sites, that were peppered along Lomita, if you will. And when we do zoning or rezoning, we don't want to do spot zoning. We want to make sure that it's contiguous. So that's why you see in this alternative that there are long stretches of Lomita that are proposed to have new mixed-use development or new mixed-use zoning on them. So as I said, alternative 2 would cover the housing element for you. You'd see kind of new development along Lomita and Narbonne. It still preserves the smaller scale of the downtown, though, and it still protects the existing low-density neighborhoods. We didn't touch those, okay? We made sure to keep the scale of development in the downtown lower than elsewhere. And what should happen is that we'll end up creating these attainable home choices for a wider range of people, right? There won't just be single-family homes in the city and then some higher density residential. There'll be mixed-use development at different densities that'll allow young professionals to move in, students, middle-income workers, maybe empty nesters to sort of shift to a sort of maybe a condominium kind of environment. Next slide. So as we get into alternatives 3 and 4, the intensity starts to pick up, right? How we've got this structured is that each alternative that I'm going to show you it gets more intense as far as the development possibilities are concerned. So with core and perimeter, again, it builds off of baseline. And we see this as being sort of the potential catalyst for revitalization along Pacific Coast Highway and along the other main corridors. It expands really where higher density mixed use development can occur. So it would be along Lomita Boulevard, Narbonne, start to allow mixed use development along PCH and even along Western and even further south down along Palos Verdes Drive, north. What you would also see is that the allowable density would kind of gradually increase towards 3 key nodes. So if you can imagine, you've got downtown Lomita at the corner of Lomita and Narbonne. Again, we're preserving the scale of the downtown. So that would be, you'd be allowed to have 30 dwelling units to the acre on sites in the downtown. And then as you move out along Lomita Boulevard towards the west and east ends, Lomita would be kind of bookended by these, where higher density development would be allowed. So you have Kaya, right, on one end, on the western end, and then you might have something of similar scale on the eastern end of Lomita. And then in between, there'd be kind of a little bit of a valley as it approaches the downtown. Sort of likewise on Narbonne, you'd have that same thing. Smaller scale development in the downtown. As you get to that other key node, which would be PCH and Narbonne, that's where you would see, again, where a higher density development would be allowed. And then it would sort of gradually decrease as you go to the edges of the city on PCH. So we see that, in particular, that node at Narbonne and PCH as being sort of a key node in the city. If you could do something there, allow development at such a scale to create this kind of catalyst, hopefully that catches fire and kind of reinvigorates that node, reinvigorates PCH, maybe starts to create a walkable environment. You have enough critical mass at that intersection, you know, with people that live there and that are looking for commercial services that will, you know, service them, like restaurants, small stores, that type of thing. That's the idea behind core and perimeter. It also, as I mentioned, emphasizes growth in the southern end of the city. And you'd see that density will provide an atmosphere for commercial uses that might be missing in the city, right? And let me touch on that a little bit too. As far as commercial uses are concerned, I think there's a couple of things that you'll probably recognize as being complex for the city of Lomita. First is that you're competing against regional centers that are in Torrance, Home Depot in San Pedro, all these other areas where there's retail that's existing, and they do create leakages, right? There's money that's leaving Lomita and going to these other jurisdictions. Problem with Lomita is that you've got a lot of small parcels. So to do a large-scale retail development, it would involve assemblage. That's complicated, and they're individually owned, which makes it even more complicated. So it's difficult to compete against these regional centers already. So the one thing that we would be kind of encouraging through these alternatives is, and this is what we heard too, is that the one thing that people love about Lomita, small town atmosphere, and the independently owned and thriving businesses. So that's what we would encourage through these alternatives, is a continuation of that. Smaller businesses, independently owned along PCH, Narbonne, Lomita, that can support the growth in population that would occur in these alternatives. I think I'm just having a little technical.
Yeah, so this charger apparently has not been working. I've tried all three of the ports. This is the new Chambers computer, so it's the first time using it. But if we are, I don't know if either Linda or JP are able to bring up the packet where the maps are. We can.
Actually, let me go to my computer up here.
Yeah. You know, maybe while they're trying to resolve this issue, maybe it's a natural break to, if you have any questions, maybe we can just do that right now.
There we go, yes. Saved the day. Is that JP?
This is the report. This is not the presentation. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any questions while we're waiting? And it's okay if you want to just wait to the end of the presentation too. Sure.
With regard to the current housing elements, which one of these would allow us to reach that without, I mean, from our proactive approach?
So
I'm not talking about 20 years, I'm just talking about the current housing element.
So alternative 2, which we call baseline, is the one that will, let's say that it'll minimally allow you to fully implement the current 2021 through 2029 housing element. So even though your general plan will stretch for 20 years, and we're probably looking at like 2045 for the general plan, Your housing element is only 8 years. That's an 8-year cycle, right? But alternative 2 will be the one that will allow you to fully implement the housing element. And that'll keep you in, the safe zone as far as,
Yeah, as far as that goes.
yeah.
But I know you need a crystal ball, and you can never predict what Sacramento's going to do. With regard to beyond the 29 plan,
Yeah.
2029 timeframe, does alternative
That's-
2,
I know where you're going, and you raise a very good point, okay? And so, and let me say this. So the question is going to be, if I may, if baseline alternative 2 allows you to minimally implement the current housing element, and knowing, and I'll tell you, there's at least 3 cycles of housing element updates that would occur during the life of your general plan. The city, actually, you guys took a very sensible approach with your housing element, because what you did is all the opportunity sites that you identified in your housing element are on Lomita and on Narbonne. So you kept PCH, for example, in your back pocket, with the thinking, I think, that given the direction that the state, the Department of Housing and Community Development have been going in, there's a likelihood that they're going to ask for more housing, in the next housing element cycle, and you're probably right. So at least right now, where you are is that you've got PCH, there's this, you can unlock this development potential on PCH, but you didn't include that in your housing element because you wanted to save that for future housing element cycles. So, to answer your question, you would start to get into alternatives 3 and alternatives 4 to start thinking about accommodating, getting ahead of the game and accommodating those next housing element cycles. So this is the one, for example, that would start to allow you to make sure that you don't have to come back and do a general plan amendment in 8 years' time to accommodate the next housing element.
next phase?
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
And to address your
All right.
question- I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
To address your question about whether this commission was involved in the current housing element, we were.
You were.
Yeah.
That's great. It's helpful because
Continuity of.
it's helpful because it gives you an understanding of what's driving the timeline. In a perfect world, we would have had an opportunity to come to the Planning Commission and get some input from you ahead of time as to what were your preferences for land use choices, but we just didn't have the time. We were very busy in June and July with the public outreach, with the GPAC, and then, I think you can see that the land use alternatives report was pretty substantial document. So but we still have an opportunity now to get your input, of course.
So that when you head to the EIR, which is coming up,
Yes.
then it will take into account whichever alternative is selected.
Correct.
To develop the EIR?
Yeah. So in order to do the environmental impact report, we need a project description, right? And we can't have a project description until we have a preferred land use plan. So that's, but again, to do an EIR, you need 10 months to a year to prepare that document.
What was the date again for the EIR?
The environmental impact report?
No, what was the date for it, the goal?
Oh, so
You said 10 months out?
yeah, so if we kind of back in from, that we know that we have to have the rezoning complete by October 15th, 2024,
I got that.
okay? And we know that we have to go through Planning Commission and the City Council for the adoption, so that means September, October 2024, we're here. And then if we, back in, that puts us in, like I say, we need to have a project description by November of this year,
Okay.
so that we have
I wrote
enough
November.
time.
I just want to make sure that's what I was. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I have, November. Yeah, I have November 23. I just want to make sure I heard you correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
heard it earlier, but I was kind of.
I had that.
Yeah,
right
you
there. Okay.
were thinking November next year, no problem.
Yeah.
We would have loved for that to have occurred as well, but we are where we are. All right, I think we're ready.
Yeah, turns out this charger's not working.
Okay.
But we can move through the presentation at least.
Yeah, all right.
quickly so we can talk about it after.
So good.
guys.
So on that prompt, all right. So alternative 4, again, sort of the opposite end of the spectrum from baseline. This is the alternative that maximizes housing growth. Okay, it allows the most density. It's similar in a way to core and perimeter, where development is really focused along the major corridors. This allows a little bit higher density. It allows up to 90 dwelling units per acre at those nodes. To put that into perspective, 90 dwelling units to the acre is what you would see at Kaya. Okay, that's about 98 units to the acre. The other thing with neighborhood nodes, one of the things that we heard during the workshops is that people were interested in having small shops like cafes, specialty stores, bakeries, that kind of thing, right in their neighborhood, something that they could walk to. And so this idea sort of stemmed from one of those discussions where alternative nodes, you can see the little brown that's sort of peppered in the yellow in the low density residential neighborhoods. This alternative would allow these kind of commercial uses at those intersections. And we're proposing these intersections. It could be any intersection really, but I think you get the idea. And what it would also allow is for, in theory, the conversion of a house that might be existing there to a cafe, something along those lines. I'll show you some pictures in a minute that'll give you the idea. Next slide, please. So along with this, these alternatives, of course, we had to create some new land use designations. The first thing I will say, though, is that when we talk about residential land uses, they're often described in allowable density. Low density usually allows about 8 dwelling units to the acre. And then you've got Kaya, for example, that, like I said, is more along the lines of 90 dwelling units to the acre. And when we talk about non-commercial uses, we describe that in terms of intensity, the floor area ratio, so how much square footage would be allowed on a site. With these alternatives, we actually proposed 3 new types of land use designations, all of a mixed use variety, mind you. So there's mixed use 30 through mixed use 90, depending on the alternative. Manufacturing commercial mixed use, 40 through 70. Manufacturing commercial really targets those areas in the city that are currently zoned for industrial manufacturing. There's not much of it, I will say, kind of on the west side of Lomita and on the east side of Lomita Boulevard. And then there's the third type, which is neighborhood mixed use, which is the uses that I was just describing, the small little cafes and stores that would be in the neighborhoods. Next slide, please. So this is just intended to give you some sampling of what that type of development, or at that intensity of development, would allow. So on the left, that's mixed use 30. So you get typically a 3-story structure with some commercial space at ground floor, usually just fronting onto the street. Mixed use 40 would add a floor, so a forced, similar type of structure, but only adding a floor. Next slide, please. And then we go on to mixed use 70 and mixed use 90. So you can see that the idea remains the same. You've got retail space on the bottom facing the street typically, and then the floors up above would be residential. Next slide. When you get into manufacturing commercial mixed use, it's just a slightly different uses that would be at the ground floor. Again, these are in areas where you've got industrial uses, and your industrial uses, mind you, they consist of like automotive repair shops and that type of thing. It's not heavy industry that we're dealing with. So it would be sort of those types of uses at ground floor and then residential above. Next slide. And then finally, the neighborhood mixed use. And like I say, these would be kind of lower profile commercial uses that would be kind of in the neighborhood and not really on your main corridors.
While you're on that, the neighborhood mixed use, does that mean it has to be residential and commercial?
Well, what it would allow is, so if there were existing residential on the site, that of course is allowed to stay. The change in zoning would allow for the change in land use designation, and then the change in zoning would then allow for this commercial use to occur. So that there doesn't have to be a residential unit on the site. It could flip entirely to a commercial use like a
Okay,
cafe.
so it doesn't require both
Right.
residential and mixed use.
But it can.
It can.
But it can.
So
Right.
70 years ago when I moved here, we had a welding shop on a corner, we had a bakery, we had a watch repair
Yeah.
guy, we had a jeweler, we had a hair salon, and they were all in the neighborhood. And that we still have a bunch of them.
We still have a lot.
Right. And this sort
They
of
just don't
harkens,
take up parking, which
Yeah.
we don't have.
yeah. And this kind of harkens back to that small town, kind of rustic history of Lomita. Next slide, please. All right, so what I want you to know is that when we consider these land use alternatives, it's a little bit beyond conceptual. It's not just us considering, colors on a map. We want to sort of dive into it a little bit. And so we do these build out projections to help you understand what are the actual impacts from a development perspective. And so start off with the existing. This is what's going on in the city right now, right? You've got about 8,200, almost 8,300 units, population hovering around 22,000. You got about 2.5 million square feet of non-residential square footage, and then approximately 3,000 jobs in the city. And so what you can see is that under the current general plan, business as usual, like I say, you'd still get development that would occur over the next 20 years. It wouldn't be that significant, but it would still occur. And then just, of course, projecting all the way out to the maximum allowable, which would be the neighborhood nodes. And so you get an idea of how the number of units increases, how the population increases, jobs, non-residential square footage. And the other thing I want to point out, this is not a goal that you're trying to achieve, right? This is just us doing some modeling to project, reasonably what would the development potential of these alternatives be over the next couple of decades. Next slide, please.
And that would be at maximum.
Right, so you've got alternative number one is, the current GP business as usual scenario, which is showing the 8,945 units, and then the other opposite would be the maximalist approach, which would be the neighborhood nodes approach. Next slide. We also look at it from the consideration of mobility and how does that affect the number of daily trips in the city. And so, we did a baseline. We looked, there's about 162,000 daily trips that occur during a weekday, I might say. So alternative one, you'd see a bump up because there'd be some additional development. And then you can see how with each other alternative, it increases, of course. So with each alternative, there's going to be new growth, new vehicle trips. The idea too, though, is that if there's mixed use, there might be, might start to impact the number of daily trips. If you can walk to the grocery outlet or to Target or to whatever other new business might open up, it might save you a trip. And so that's the intent with some of these projects, is that it might, through mixed use development, you might see a little bit of a reduction in vehicle trips as well. Next slide.
Wait, can I go back real quick?
Sure.
On the total trips per day, is that on the corridor, PCH Lomita, and or is that throughout the entire
This is
city?
throughout the whole city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this bicycles or cars?
Vehicles, cars.
Vehicles, okay.
Okay. All right. We look.
Yeah, that's a projection that you've done that the EIR has to be completed to substantiate.
So what we did with this, right, is that yes, it will be the analysis that will be done for the traffic impact study is going to be more robust, right? Mm-hmm. But at this point, using some modeling, the traffic engineer was able to provide, at least determine what's baseline, and then what some projections could be in terms of increases in daily trips. Now, fiscal considerations, I got to step you through this one because they used slightly different headings. The column on the right, the extreme right, that's what we'll call business as usual, okay? And if you just look at the bottom line, in terms of the impacts, the fiscal impacts on the city, you would see that if you do nothing, that the revenues that are created from development, commercial activity that would occur in the city would represent about 5% of the general fund revenues. If you go all the way to the left-hand side, proposed land use plan number 1 is actually the baseline, so that's the implementation of the housing element, okay? So that it increases to about 7% of general fund revenues. Core and perimeter, which is alternative 3, goes to 11. And then finally, the maximal alternative would represent about 13% of current general fund revenues. So that what I'll say is that each alternative has a positive net fiscal impact on the city's general fund at build out. Okay, and then of course, they just range in terms of how positive are the impacts. Next slide. With regard to infrastructure considerations, something else we need to consider. With alternative 1, business as usual, so you maintaining the current general plan, not really doing anything at all. The city has capacity to, from a stormwater, water, and sewer to accommodate growth in the city. With alternative 2, the analysis in the housing element indicated that the existing infrastructure can accommodate the anticipated development in alternative 2, which is baseline. For alternatives 3 and 4, now there's no projections that have been done for this. That'll be done when we get to the environmental impact stage. But there's a couple of things that we do know. One is that any development that occurs in Lomita is going to be infill development. Typically, there's already something on the site, right? If you're going to redevelop an underutilized commercial site, for example, it's already paved, it already has a rooftop on it. So from the perspective of surface drainage compared to existing conditions, those 2 alternatives, there's enough capacity in the city to handle the stormwater impacts. With regard to water and wastewater, we don't know those impacts just yet. Like I said, they're yet to be determined in the environmental impact report. Next slide. Just very quickly, just wanted to let you know that although you have 4 alternatives in front of you, we actually started off with 8 after we got all that input, and we took 8 to the General Plan Advisory Committee, and they provided some input, helped us refine some of these concepts. So we got input, like we say, from the city, from the GPAC, from the Technical Advisory Committee, and that's kind of the refined report that you have before you. Next slide. So your role in the process, help us identify the components that you like and the alternatives that you feel most comfortable with. Which ones do you think represents the community values? And just provide us with your input as your opportunity, and discuss, what maps you agree with and what maps you might disagree with. Next slide. So next steps, just very quickly, a couple things coming up. We're going to City Council next week to make same presentation, and we'll let them know if the Planning Commission has any input, so you'll be, that'll appear in the staff report. And then we'll start preparing the preferred land use plan in the month of November. And then there's actually a GPAC meeting that'll happen where we'll start to talk about public facilities, services, safety, and noise.
And then I just want to mention also with that GPAC meeting on November 16th, that's also the same day as the State of the City. That's that morning, and they actually decided to theme it Lomita Looking Up, which is our general plan theme too. So I'm sure there'll be discussion on it there.
And I think that's it. With that, I think we're ready for questions and comments.
Okay, well, thank you for the presentation. Very informative, detailed, and yet not bogged down. So great. Brenda, questions for him?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Okay.
So when we did the housing element, we slated sites that would potentially increase the housing to meet the goals set by the state, but we did not rezone any of that. So now we're at the point where we have to rezone them.
Not at this moment.
Well,
Next
but
October
that's,
is, yeah.
Okay, so that's kind of where it's going. And then one thing that you had said, you were talking about the corner on PCH and Narbonne as being high for multiple use with really high density. That particular corner, we just got 2 stores to calm the city down. We don't want to open up, we don't want to be building no, ripping those out, and building no condominiums on those two sites. I mean, that's just my thing. And then when I was looking at the slide where you have the existing housing, and then it's the projected for all phases of the plan. So from point A to point to the end, if my calculations are correct, we are only adding 3,500 units between A and B, that one. And I used existing, I'm sorry. So there's only a difference of 3,005 units between the existing and 4, which would be the maximum. And the jobs increasing, we're only increasing by 627? I mean, is that right? So we're increasing housing units and trying to increase retail units as well to bring in the revenue for the city. But we're only looking at projecting 600 jobs? And that's a question. I'm not.
Yeah, you're right. And so, and again, keep in mind that, that's why I sort of tried to lay the groundwork for as far as the city attracting, new retail uses, right? Where you have this competition with the likes of Delamo, the businesses that are in San Pedro. So the likely commercial development that you'll get will be those smaller, independently owned businesses that would support, right, the population that lives here, right? So if we can help stop some of the leakage, right? I think we know that people are going to still go to Home Depot to buy their building material, but maybe we can capture some of those revenues for restaurants, for small retail shops, for those types of things. And those are the types of businesses that you would see that would occupy like that ground floor of those mixed-use developments. So you're right. I mean, it's disproportional in terms of the number of units versus the number of jobs, and that's probably an unfortunate reality of what we see, of what we're projecting at least.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. That just clarified it. I'm fine.
Yeah, I mean, the mom and pop businesses are the most difficult business to keep going. And if you open like a small Home Depot type of store, well, you cannot sell it for what Home Depot can sell it for. And people get in their car and go to Home Depot. So to the businesses that you say we need in the city, the chances of it really happening and the number occurring and being successful is really quite low. And on number 4, when you have these little businesses in the neighborhood, I saw one right next door to my house. I'm like, okay, what are you going to put next door to my house? That was just really interesting looking at that. But I mean, actually, Lomita is just, what we're trying to do with Lomita is just kind of make it something it's not, but we have to because the state's requiring it, and the jobs are just not going to be there. I don't even think you're going to get 600 more jobs. And it's just going to be more family living and more congestion and the walkability, walk to the market. I mean, when I go to the market, I get 5 bags of stuff. I'm not going to carry 5 bags walking home from the market. You're going to take your car. So, you try to go to the market maybe once a week instead of walking every day to the market, because who wants to do that, okay? So I understand we're stuck with this, but there's just many little things that I just see may not happen.
Thank you. Mike?
Yeah, looking at the alternatives, some of the alternatives as you look at them and group them together, if you will. If you're going to get into the higher densities and everything, that's going to require a lot of property consolidation. It's going to require somebody coming in and spending many millions of dollars to buy a whole bunch of property that is now commercial with a big parking lot and to buy those pieces of property to be able to consolidate it, to be able to build another kaya, okay? Or whatever it might be, a 7-story unit or whatever the case may be. So really, what we're doing here would be saying, if somebody came in with unlimited bank pockets full of bank money, or whatever the case may be, they could build that if they could do all of this consolidation of properties and everything to build all of this. When and it's like I was saying, when in reality, it's probably not going to happen. But you're planning for it.
If I may comment on that?
Please.
Yeah. So to your point, actually, right? So what the, right now what the city allows is mixed use up to 22 dwelling units to the acre, right? And that's what occurs right here in downtown Lomita and in the mixed use overlay. For the housing element, you're going to have to bump that up to at least 30 dwelling units to the acre. So here's the problem, is that even at 30 dwelling units to the acre, you're right on the threshold of a penciling out or not for this reason, right? You're in an area where if the density was a little bit higher, it could justify you building a parking structure or going subterranean. Where you're at 30 dwelling units to the acre, you're still sort of almost confined to doing surface parking. So it's really actually quite difficult to construct at 22 dwelling units to the acre or even 30 dwelling units to the acre. And the other problem that you have in Lomita is that you've got small parcels that are independently owned. So you do need to lot consolidate. So what is going to incentivize somebody to lot consolidate? It's increasing the density, right? That's why I don't know the history of Kaya, but as far as the development is concerned, when you allow more density, it allows the developer to have more opportunity to sort of recover those costs, right? The costs of assembling parcels, the cost of building a parking structure. That's why you need to increase the density in order to make kind of a development happen. Otherwise, will you
low income units so they can build more units so they don't have to have parking.
Well, and that does come down from the state, okay? And that's what you're faced with in the housing element.
I understand that, but that's that's where you're going with this.
Well, I think what we're trying to do is look for an avenue to actually, one of the things with your housing element, what you need to do is you need to sort of set the table for development to occur. And so the state has approved your housing element, says that, okay, you're going to rezone these lands at these densities. But what the state will also be doing over the course of the life of the housing element is checking on your progress, right? Seeing where you are in terms of how are you accommodating your arena? Do you need to make adjustments in order to incentivize this to make development occur? And so, as I indicated, one of the great incentives for making development occur is to allow density to increase so that you can, like I say, absorb the cost of doing that lot consolidation. And here, I want to do this as well. And you have seen in the report, you'll even seen in this presentation, the one thing we're not doing tonight is making a recommendation for what alternative to choose. We're trying to keep this as objective as possible, okay? This is the range of options. You're going to tell us which way you want the community to go in, but we're not here to tell you what to do, okay?
Debating whether to say anything. Looking at a 35+% increase in population in a town that's been at 21,000 for 40 years is kind of a scary proposition. And I also, looking at how the government sector looks at regulations and how they enforce it, I'm a little concerned about going so far out with it that we're just giving them everything that they want now, because they're never going to come back and pat you on the head and say, great job. They're going to say, well, that was easy, let's get some more. I'm really concerned about that. I know we got to do something, and we got to move forward. It's just that I'm looking at the maps, and I'm in my head looking at what could be just on Lomita Boulevard right here. I mean, that would really change the landscape of what's going on here. And the public outcry on whether it was warranted or not on Kaya was unbelievable. I can't even imagine what it's going to be if we start, and I granted it doesn't happen overnight. And nothing's going to say, no matter what you do here, nothing's going to say that developers are going to say, yeah, let's go build there. We don't know what's going to happen in the economy. We don't know. We just got to put stuff in place. So I get that. It's really aggressive. But that's why I didn't go to the GPAC. I did that route before, so it's better to get it like this. I'm sure that's all been argued out in the GPAC. That's all I have.
Jay?
Can you, thank you. Can you talk to me a little bit about how, just thinking about the PCH corridor, how switching from a commercial to a mixed use zoning would increase the type of business and foot traffic that is desirable? Like, how would that change, help the area evolve?
Okay. So, of course, with PCH, using that as an example right now, you have commercial uses. There's no residential that's permitted on PCH, kind of some irregularly shaped parcels, small parcels. And PCH is, it's, for the most part, it's used as just a way to get from point A to point B as far as other jurisdictions are concerned, right? They're just trying to get to the freeway or what have you. So there's not a lot that's incentivizing people to stop at those commercial uses, right? Now you've got some success stories, of course, on Pacific Coast Highway. The idea of kind of injecting mixed use there, and I don't want to go comparing apples to oranges, right? But if you look at a city like Pasadena, for example, in Colorado Avenue, how they have mixed uses on Colorado, retail on the ground floor, residential above. But what you end up doing is creating a critical mass of people that live there, and people that can't afford to live in a single family dwelling just yet. We all know that. I mean, the cost of housing, especially for single-family homes in the South Bay, is quite significant. So now you have people that are here living, and they're demanding services. So to your point, I get it. They don't want to carry 5 bags from the grocery store, but maybe they want to go to the restaurant that's just a block away, and they don't need the vehicle for that. Maybe there's other services that open up to sort of support those people. And then as you start to build, we look at, with regard to redevelopment, you look at those catalyst projects, right? Like what's that one project or 2 projects that are going to create this critical mass at a node like Narbonne and PCH? And if you inject those people, how does that affect development at the rest of the intersection? And then as the kind of maybe a domino effect, a positive domino effect, sort of along Pacific Coast Highway. I fully appreciate that Kaya there's a lot of controversy with Kaya. We are looking for where in the city can we accommodate higher density residential development. And I think what I'm hearing from the Planning Commission is that you recognize that you have to do something with the housing elements, and maybe there's a leaning towards alternative 2, which was baseline. And maybe there's somewhat of a leaning too to alternative 3, which was that core and perimeter, which would allow mixed-use development outside of Lomita and Narbonne, some on PCH. Maybe that's the sweet spot right in there. But that's the idea, is that you have foot traffic now that's there. And recognizing, of course, that a corridor like PCH might not be the most pedestrian-friendly right now. But how do we change that? Maybe if there's something on PCH to make people slow down a little bit, that they'll stop and they'll have a look at what's there. And so then these independent businesses and nationally branded businesses, by all means, right, can sort of survive and thrive on a place like PCH or Lomita Boulevard.
Got it. Do you, as a way of building off of that question, do you think it's possible, I'm just looking at option 3, with the higher density mixed use right at the corner of PCH and Narbonne, is it possible that you could create a node with just 30 and 40, mixed use 30 and 40 in that area versus going all the way up to 70 to 90 at that corner?
So I think you run into that problem, right? There's, I'm going to use the development that's just south of where we are right now, right? Which is I think it's, I'm not sure if it's Project Barley or the other brewery, Burning Daylight. So that's actually a mixed use project, right? It has commercial on the bottom, some residential units at the top, and then there's actually residential behind it, and they're separated by some surface parking. That is the type of development that you would see on PCH, right? It's a little problematic the way that it's structured, because they have to do surface parking because there's not enough units to support structured parking. Mm-hmm. So, and then that would start to shy, I think, a developer away, because you'd have to still probably assemble a parcel or two to make the development happen. So that, I think, could you do mixed-use development on PCH if it was only 30 dwelling units to the acre, maybe 40 dwelling units to the acre? Sure. But I don't know if you'd get enough interest to create that sort of critical mass to cause like this catalyst project that would then, hopefully cause other properties in the area to then redevelop.
Okay, got it. And this is my last question. As you've obviously done a ton of work with the community to kind of garner opinions, garner feedback. Did one of these alternative uses rise to the top, or does it feel like the populace is kind of drifting toward one or the other that was a favorite?
So I think that, in alternative 4, where we showed you those neighborhood nodes, that was based on some interest that we had from people that wanted those types of uses in their residential neighborhood. But how success, and you've raised a good point about the success or failure of that. I think where people are gravitating is somewhere in the middle right there, right? Which is the alternative 2 and alternative 3 or variation of one or the other.
That's it for questions for me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would say that there's no more questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great presentation. Thanks for taking the time to go over all this. Sorry for the little video issues, but good job. If there's no further questions, then I will open the public hearing at this time. Anybody would like to speak on the public hearing portion? Seeing none?
It's not a public hearing, but.
No, I know, but
George Kivett has requested to speak, and I'll check the Zoom in case.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to have to speak to our city attorney and our city manager and the city council in regards to this speaking on items such as this that aren't necessarily a public hearing. First thing I'd like to mention, on this neighborhood nodes, and I attended every GPAC meeting, I've attended every public hearing, I heard very little talk about this, very little. And everybody that I've spoken to within my neighborhood in the community does not like that. There's a location right at 240th and Eshelman, right where that infamous stop sign that Mike is very well aware of is designated as one of those neighborhood nodes. Very bad idea. I do not like that at all, and I have not spoken to anybody in the community that likes that idea. I'd like to preserve the scale of downtown. I'd like to preserve the R1 and A1 neighborhoods in their present densities. I'd like to maintain those densities as much as possible. Overall, I like option 2 in that I would like to have the mixed-use overlay all the way down along Norbonne and all the way down Lomita Boulevard, both to the east and west to the city borders. And I've spoken to both the Planning Commission and the City Council in that regards in the past. With the increase to 30 units, which is in the housing element, I don't like going anywhere above that 30 units. And I think you're going to get a lot of neighborhood pushback if you try and do that. Also, as far as the need for higher density, and I've been vacillating on this point, is as far as these major nodes for the 70 to 90 unit type density. The only location now that, after giving this further thought, where I think it would work, that we got the Caia at one end. I think something down at the eastern end of Lomita Boulevard might be another alternative site for something like that. But after further thought, I don't think on Norbonne, close to PCH, is a good site for something like that. I do like to encourage assemblages, and I'm familiar as a real estate broker. I've done a number of assemblages, even representing municipal entities. And I like the concept of assemblages, and I think it's appropriate for Lomita and should be encouraged. As far as rezoning, some of the residential, well, I spoke to that, residential lots to a commercial mixed use, I don't like that. And there has been in the past numerous properties on what were primarily residential streets, Eshelman comes to mind, that have been rezoned to commercial, from commercial to residential, primarily because it's difficult to finance properties that are commercial use with the resident, that have a commercial zone but have a residential use. You can't get financing for it. It's impossible. Unless you have a rebuild letter, you can't get financing for it. So you would hinder a lot of people as far as that goes. And yeah, again, I'd like to keep that, the mixed use to maximum of 30 units per acre. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. If anybody has any other questions for either staff or for the presentation? Hearing none, we can move on. There was no action needed by the commission, correct? Okay. So we will go on to item C, which is communication regarding city council actions, 5C.
Yes, we've actually had 4 council meetings since Planning Commission last met. So just to run through things related to the Community Development Department that's been on those agendas and subsequently approved by City Council. We have the resolution of public convenience and necessity for the CUP that you all approved for grocery outlet to be coming in. We also have the zoning text amendment that regulates murals citywide, and there's also some interest kind of separate from the ordinance in trying to gear that up and working with a business to maybe get an artist to come in and do one to kind of kick things off and get more murals through the city, because as you have definitely seen, because we talked about it, graffiti's gotten a lot worse, and we talked about this. But at the next meeting, we had the zoning text amendment, first reading, and then the second, and they adopted on the second meeting in September for allowing basically the density bonus to be applied to mixed units that are 4 or less when they're residential units. And that was directly related to Machida Academy that you all also heard. And then we also had, I was able to work with the University of Southern California one of their schools as it relates to public service and economic development to get to Lomita into the list of all the cities in the competition that they have. It's for their graduate students. This is year 2 of it, and the idea is that their USC's project, sponsored by Sunstone, and a public-private partnership, is that they come up with ideas to improve economic development in the city as it relates to one specific idea or sector, and that being entrepreneurship. So we talked about mom and pop shops earlier today. What can the city do to help perpetuate those, help support them, and encourage more of them? So that's going to be about a year-long project by the students. We won't hear from them till this spring on their recommendations, and then council can decide if they'd like to implement any of those. But I'll let you know when that presentation comes up. So last but not least, we did amend the citywide user fees. Some things in the fee schedule that either the city was losing money on the review, or it needed some clarification on what fees apply to what projects. And then we also made it so that any code enforcement appeals are to be done in the same as parking enforcement appeals, which is online. And for those who don't have access to online, we can guide those individuals at City Hall on the public computer we have. So it's kind of all over the place for economic development, code enforcement, planning, but it's exciting news that the council's seems to be making positive moves in all directions.
Good. Okay. Thank you. All right. Next item, 5D, upcoming developments and businesses. I will say that in the last e-newsletter, there was a list in there of developments, and that was nice to see. So, but if you have an update on anything.
I don't have any since then.
Anybody
Yeah.
have a question on that item? Yes.
Does Target change their date for opening, or?
It's springtime, as far as I know.
Oh, it's next spring?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then actually, is there any news on the grocery outlet? Are they still going through?
They've done everything they need to with the city. We don't have a date from them yet either, but they've said, wait to announce. But they're all approved.
They're still going ahead. Yeah. Okay.
As far as we know.
And one more thing.
Okay.
I don't know if it falls under this category or not, but vacancy rate for commercial properties, is that something we get through the city or through the chamber or both?
A report on it?
I don't want a report. I
How
just
to
want to
find-
know the number of vacant commercial properties in Lomita. Yeah, I figured.
I mean, you all have seen so many projects come through where restaurants are expanding into the vacant adjacent units. Like, that's happening because restaurants are staying, but certain retail and office and whatnot is moving online, home-based business. Yeah.
I don't want to make a bunch of work. I just wondered if there's a number somewhere.
I'm going to ask about it and
Okay.
hopefully have some good answers for you.
Yeah,
We
just,
make note of it.
yeah, if not, I get it.
Okay. Anything else, Brianna, on that item? I guess not.
No, sorry.
Okay, item 6, other matters, staff announcements. I guess we want to welcome Marco again formally. He is replacing David King as counsel going forward. So
Correct,
welcome
from
again.
BBK, yes.
All right, item 6B, planning commissioner items. Jay, we'll start with you.
Nothing for me.
Okay, Bob,
Good, thanks.
Mike?
Nope.
Brenda?
I just have one thing. With the businesses starting up, and especially the one that's around the corner from my house, and I go there every morning. So I did attend the Traffic and Safety Commission last month. And they're doing an update as well on different issues going on in the city regarding our traffic conditions. I love the fact that our businesses are thriving, that are coming in. but the traffic that is created and the lack of driver's awareness just boggled me to no end. Just coming out of a parking lot and turning onto a street without even looking to see if anybody is coming. So I addressed that issue, and the sheriff is aware of it. And he swore, I know that they're understaffed and there's more important things in city than traffic, but he did, and I have noticed him peeking his little car down there to see what can be done. Because as most of you are aware, the speed limit changes from 25 to 35 just after 240th, and they're already doing 35 when they hit the city hall. So, and there's nowhere to go. I mean, that there's an island in the middle of the street, and there's gonna be a problem. I can promise it. So, I did address that, and there's be some other stuff coming up from traffic and safety as well. So, I just wanted to pass that along.
Thank you.
Can I follow up on that with Brenda? Brenda, so that we're talking about
Cream pan.
cream pan, which is awesome.
It's-
Holy mackerel.
I've gained so much weight. If I didn't walk there, it would be awful.
Yeah, I can't take the Tesla because she tracks me to see that I'm going there. So good. When you talk to him about that, they park their vans on the street at night.
Well,
Their delivery vans. and-
those aren't their delivery vans. That's Eco Wash's delivery vans
Across the street?
from
Really?
across the street.
Oh,
and,
my.
And I've been trying to, I know several of my neighbors have complained because when you come out
You
on the
can't see.
240, you can't see until you're all the way out.
It's a
into
blind
the-
intersection, and by the time you can
it's-
see, you're going to get hit.
Yeah, we close our eyes and
In the
pray that
pan.
we make it to the middle, which is now very congested on it.
And they put signs up, no vehicles over 5.
Yeah, well, they don't care.
Yeah, but they just moved back 6 feet. You still
Yeah.
can't see the traffic. So I addressed it, and I
Okay.
did bring that up, and we've been promised that somebody's gonna take a look at
Can we make a motion that staff has to provide cream pan for us?
Well, I was gonna ask you, wasn't
Strawberry
there supposed to be an
croissants.
official opening that we were supposed to go to?
They are
I guess not, they
phenomenal.
just decided to
They
open
have
it.
changed their hours, though. They're open from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Which-
I got there at 6 a.m. on a Sunday, and I was 10th in line.
Well, I went the first day on their soft opening. They were sold out by like 9 o'clock. But now they're baking more.
Good.
Brenda, to go, excuse me, I'm sorry, Monica, I know it's your turn, but to go on, to go on more with the Traffic and Safety Commission, and she was there, as I, with regard to the traffic calming, okay? It's a joke.
Traffic calming is the joke? Calm down.
No, that's what that's what they're addressing.
They're trying to come up
It's a
with a
joke.
plan for traffic calming. Monica, nothing? Okay, I had a couple things, and I know this goes back to graffiti, but
Spike Street.
the plastic fencing, I guess, if you would, on Lomita at the auto shop, just before you get to Lomita's Best, they got 8-foot letters all over the plastic, you know, the fencing, the temporary fencing they have on there. The project and development next to the Kiwanis, on that fence there is a big thing that says Lomita on it, and spray paint on the fence.
The first one you mentioned, you're talking about graffiti.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's graffiti on Lomita Boulevard along that,
And
so
on
I think it's
that
a turquoise blue wraparound fence cover. They've got stuff there. They've got the one where Metawar is doing his development on that one. And I saw a third one somewhere today, and I can't remember where it was now. So I don't know if you can maybe push
We'll make
somebody's
sure that
button
gets
tomorrow.
sent to code enforcement. Thank you.
The other issue was traffic, and I didn't go to that meeting because I had another meeting, but I think the sheriffs are doing a okay job, but like Brenda says, they're a little understaffed and they can't get to everything. But they are enforcing the red zones for sure. If you call them, they'll be out there and they'll ticket the cars and pretty much, you know, record speed. So I was told, hey, if you can't get us to come out, call code enforcement. But a lot of it happens after hours. And I don't see somebody running over here, getting in the car and running over there and getting there. So if you have anybody that's in the red zone or in front of a hydrant or some weird parking issue, I said, don't hesitate to call the sheriff. So I don't know what a parking ticket is in the red zone, but they're more than happy to give them out.
Yeah, the parking enforcement division, they actually just recently hired a manager. So I do know that. I think he started a week or two ago. It's under the city manager's department. So I'll talk with them about that.
But I mean, after hours, they can't run out there at night, so the sheriff's.
Yeah, I'm not sure of their hours, so I'll bring it up in our
But I'm
meeting.
like 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night. I don't think, and on weekends, usually they're not around on weekends either, so. Okay, last item, item 6A, commissioners to attend council meetings, here we go again.
Well, we're not required to, you are.
I understand, and I can't go to every council meeting, so November 7th and November 21st. So where are we at with this? Are we gonna still enforce this, or are we?
Can't make it, I'm sorry.
I can't either.
That's November 7th, that's when they're redoing this meeting, correct?
November 7th, no, that's a council
The
meeting.
discussion from tonight is next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow.
Oh, okay,
Mhm.
okay. I can do the 7th. But it can't be the 21st. That's Thanksgiving, I'm cooking on.
Well, yeah, and then that Tuesday is before Thanksgiving, so they may cancel that one. I don't know if that's, they may cancel the 21st, I don't know. Okay, and then one last item before we adjourn. We're going to adjourn the meeting in the memory of Susie Deborah's husband. I unfortunately don't have his first name. Do you? Stephen? So we'll adjourn the memory in memory of Stephen Deborah, Susie's husband. So with that, there's a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Second? Second. Okay, motion to adjourn second. We're adjourned at 8:05, is that right? 8:12.